Hey founders, this is the SaaS Boss Show, the podcast for SaaS founders in the growth stage who want to get unstuck, build high-performing teams, and get clarity about how to build a profitable startup. Every week, I interview SaaS consultants, coaches, and experts who work with dozens of startups just like yours and share their best strategies to overcome the daily challenges of growing a profitable SaaS. My name is Natalie Luniva, and I'm a growth and leadership coach to SaaS founders. And I'm also married to a SaaS founder, and I'm so pleased that you've joined us on this conversation. It is my pleasure to interview Tory Smith about demo versus free trial, which is better for your SaaS company. So Tory is a co-founder of a marketing agency for SaaS companies here in Dallas. The agency is called the Bayleaf, right?
Bayleaf Digital.
Bayleaf Digital. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Not a lot of you know, but I organize a local event here in Dallas for SaaS founders. And Tory was going to be a speaker at the event. That was going to happen about a week ago, but unfortunately, like all the events, this event got rescheduled for later in May. So I'm excited for Tory to be the speaker at that event. Tory and I had a really nice conversation a few weeks ago where him and I just started talking about, demos versus free trials and how there are definitely some questions whether founders need to use a demo versus free trial and why a demo is better than trial or a trial is better than demo. This is why I decided that this could be a great topic for us to discuss and share with the listeners. Tory, how did you start working with SaaS founders?
We started our agency about 7 years ago. My business partner and I had the fortune of working at companies like Travelocity, had some experience working at Citigroup. And, there came a time when we learned we could do things better, faster, start calling our own shots. And so we made the decision to go into business together and open up an agency. And we didn't know exactly what our niche was going to be. We've had different clients through different verticals throughout the years. But it was more recently, as recent as 3 years ago, I attended my first SaaS conference in Silicon Valley, SaaSter, for those of you guys who are followers of Jason Lumpkin. And it was very, very eye-opening. Just the vibe that was in the air, the money that was being exchanged. And I came back to Dallas where our office is, and I told my business partner, I said, okay, this is who we need to target. We need to go after SaaS companies because it's growing at a rate, just unprecedented rate. And I want to be able to plug in our skills, both the creative side as well as the technical side, because, being in software, you have to have some technical acumen as well. But to be able to use both sides of the brain, so to speak, and help out these SaaS companies. And so after we had that aha moment, very next day, we started revamping our website, started building content for our website, started reaching out to SaaS companies, some startups, some a little established, and we started making connections and never looked back. And so we have been purely focused on growing SaaS companies for going on 3 years now. And I believe we're the first SaaS growth agency in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
So let's talk about trials and demos. When choosing between the two, there are lots of things to consider, right? There's price, then how complex the tool is, the complexity of it, whether by just signing up for free is going to make sense and people will be able to figure out what's happening. And then probably the stage, the earlier you are on your stage, the more likely that you're going to have to talk to your prospective customers, right? So demo would make much more sense, especially at the beginning. Are there any other things to consider when deciding between the two?
Absolutely, right. There's pros and cons to both, and I want to touch on the pros and cons. We'll start with the demo side, right? So, as you mentioned, the more complex your product is, the more explaining there is to do. And if you're trying to rely on your next customer to figure it out on their own, then you're in for a surprise, because you're just going to create frustration if all you do is offer a trial right out the gate and hope for the best. So, anytime it's super complex, yes, I certainly encourage my clients to offer some sort of a demo. And so that's one area. The other area too is it gives you a chance to get to know the customer, get to know their goals, their needs, what are their pain points, right? You can start asking some open-ended questions and getting them to talk, right? Next thing you know, yes, you're going to showcase some of your stuff, but it's a two-sided conversation. Sure, you're going to showcase how you're going to ease their pain, but you're also learning a lot about that customer. You're building rapport with that customer. That is, even off the very first demo call, you'll be able to see, are these guys even a fit? And if they're not, I would let them know up front if they're not a fit, so that you can move on to the next prospect. Now, that's some of the pros. Now, some of the cons is, well, salespeople are expensive. So depending on how many deals you're trying to close, depending on, it's a numbers game, right? I mean, you have to quantify how much time, how many reps do you need to, field these leads, get it routed to the right person, and, have that demo, talk through all the various scenarios, follow-up calls. It can get very, very expensive very, very fast. But then again, that's why I save it for your bigger companies that have a more complex offering, where maybe that self-service model, that free trial model, is not going to be the best fit. So that's really, I guess, the biggest con, if you will. Now, shifting gears, talking about the pros and cons of a trial. So, free trials, you see them everywhere. About 70% of SaaS companies offer free trials today. And there's a good reason for that, right? You're going to see higher conversion more often than not, between the two. When you talk about getting critical mass and you give them the keys to the car, let them drive it. You don't really need, a sales team, a support team. If questions come up, sure, but a sales team to guide them through things, not so much. It's a little bit of a lighter offering where people can figure out how your product or solution can fit their needs best. Okay, so a free trial would typically be, of course, the flip of that, of what I mentioned for a demo. It would be something where it is very obvious. You have a very, very clean UI. It flows well. The verbiage you're using, fits their industry. So the reliance of a sales team is not as necessary. Again, if your software is simplistic enough and and you have a strong knowledge base and how-to videos to where a free trial can get them on their way, so you don't have to invest in the salespeople. Now, those are the pros of the free trial. The con of the free trial is a user getting stuck, a user getting frustrated, something that a demo could have resolved earlier in the engagement. So yeah, definitely pros and cons to doing both. It just really kind of depends on how ramped up your sales team is, and how much your budget is for salespeople, and of course, given the complexity, depends on how complex your software is as well.
What are our options in addition to demo and free trial? You've brought up another option that I have not even thought about, and I think lots of founders may not even think about, Intercept trial. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What would be a good use case for that?
Yeah, so that came to mind with a client that they didn't, it was a term that I came up with, but I thought it was a pretty fitting term. They had some pretty complex software, and it was in the inventory management space. It touches a lot of different things across a small or medium business. And they were having struggles just offering a trial by itself. And so they're really pushing demos. And the demo conversion just wasn't as high. And so one of the things that they decided to say, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and change the verbiage, even though, all this time we've been requesting demo. Let's try to boost conversion by offering a trial. But they have to provision something in order to turn it on, right? It's not a universal self-service thing. Okay, they have to configure something on the back end to get it working just right. So that gives the sales rep an opportunity to intercept it. And I call it interception because you're able to insert yourself into that process before giving them the keys to the fortress. Okay, you're able to have that conversation with the prospect because, again, it's a very complex offering. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. At the end of the day, both parties win, right? The sales rep gets to establish rapport and make a connection, a genuine connection with that prospect. The prospect gets to see whether or not it's a good fit. Now, I will caution that this is not being sly. It's being creative. But you also need to be very, very upfront, right? We're not talking about any any shady tactics or anything. You need to be very, very upfront in your messaging. When you email them and say, hey, we do need to send you this, but I would like to spend a few minutes to make sure that everything is configured properly, blah, blah, blah. If they are adamant, if your prospect is adamant and says, look, I don't want to mess with that, I don't want to talk to anybody, I just want the free trial, then you have to honor that trial, knowing that they may get frustrated because your stuff is too complicated for them without explanation, right? So that's just something to be mindful of. If you need to have truth in advertising, of course. If you're offering something, then make sure you fulfill on that commitment. But if you have an opportunity to get on the phone with them, by all means, get on the phone with them, share your screen, get to know them a little better, and help close the deal. And then there's another component to think about, often called a managed trial, or also known as a proof of concept. So your proof of concept, or your POC, that's going to be ideal for your highly qualified prospects that have really complicated rollouts, right? But there's signs of having a very strong LTV, strong lifetime value. So this is where you, as a SaaS company, put in the time, effort, energy to really customize their trial, what makes it work for them, and prove out its value. And it doesn't always have to be free. Again, depending on the complexity, the managed trial or proof of concept is something that I've had some clients actually charge for that. So again, just kind of depends on the degrees of complexity and any upfront costs that may be incurred because of all the extra effort that's involved. So a couple variations, between the POC and then interception. So a couple options there.
So we can go from freemium to trial to managed trial.
So freemium is becoming more and more popular. You're seeing freemium everywhere. It's almost like, hey, I get to see what's behind the curtain without having to give up a credit card or know that my time's about to expire. I get a taste of what you have to offer, and that's why it's so important. So it's not, a freemium is technically not a trial, right? A freemium is a limited free version of software that your customer can have access to get a taste of what it looks like, to understand how it works. But of course, there's going to be limitations. So so definitely freemium is something that I encourage SaaS companies to consider if it's the right model. But just know that the product development to offer freemium is going to require a lot more of your developers, right? Because every use case, hey, where do I put the limitation into a path where I can actually sell them on a premium service, and then how do I tier that service through different packages or whatnot. So just keep that in mind, that if you do decide to go the freemium route, to be mindful of how much product development is going to be needed to really make sure that that's the right model to choose. I do want to mention the importance of measuring conversion. And when I say conversion, I'm not talking about just people filling out a form on your website, right? There's a lot of different angles to consider. So you've got to think about the demo conversion rates versus the free trial conversion rates, if you're testing between the two. But there's really 3 types of conversion rates you want to look at. The first one, you want to be able to measure the visitor going from your form submission conversion rate. That's where you'd set up 2 different conversion goals, right? You'd set up one for people requesting the demo. You'd set up the other conversion rate for people taking the free trial. So this way you have both on the same page at the same time. And you can figure out what your take rate is there. I'd be willing to bet it's going to be free trial more often than not. That's what I've seen. But again, that's something you should test on your own. Don't take my word for it. But you have to go beyond just filling out that initial form. The second metric that you want to measure is the lead to demo conversion. And likewise, you want to see the lead to trial taker conversion rate. So figure out what the conversion rate looks like between those two. Once they've actually requested the demo, how many of them moved forward with the demo, right? When they requested a free trial, how many of them actually made it through the 7 days. Okay. And then lastly, of course, is going to be your acquisition rate, right? Figuring out from the number of demos or trials, how many of them actually turn into paying customers. And if you want to take it a step further, look at that even after the 90-day mark, right? Because that'll help eliminate any of those that may have canceled in the first 2 or 3 months.
When you and I met, I shared with you the story that my husband says, couple of years ago, it was people were able to sign up for trial, but then it was not really polished. So we switched it to a demo, and then we've been doing demo for a while. And then recently we switched it to demo and trial. So there are 2 options there. And that made such a difference because we basically started getting twice as many leads. People were still signing up for demo, and people who would not want to sign up for demo, they were signing up for trial. We're still getting at least the same number of sales initially, like right off the gate. But then we're also getting so many more leads just because we've opened up this a whole new door. So I hear a lot of founders talk about, we're not, we're only doing demo. I don't want to do trial. So if you have not tried doing trials, I highly recommend you test it. I'm sure you're going to be surprised, and you'll get at least some interesting nuggets of information that you would not think about otherwise.
Yeah, Natalie, you hit the nail on the head, and I'm glad you brought this point up. So when we initially started opening this up, we talked about which is better. And truth be told, you don't necessarily have to choose one over the other, okay? You can actually present both offers because you're giving them the choice. So giving them both options can certainly be a winner, and that's also something you should test. So when testing, demos by themselves versus free trials by themselves, or offering both. And yes, you'll be surprised. And in a lot of cases I've seen offering both is certainly a way to open up even more leads. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one against the other. So when I talk about websites and funneling and how you navigate a site, it's easy to do that, right? You can have a primary call to action and kind of a secondary call to action, and you can kind of funnel them. And you can kind of test which one should be your primary versus your secondary. Some experts would say, oh, no, you never want to have 2 call to actions on a page. That'll just confuse people. And it really just depends. Again, it's something you test. It's not about gut feeling at that point. It's about what do the numbers say. We do have to be careful on landing pages where if you're throwing money, say at Google Ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you've got like a dedicated landing page where you don't want them navigating us to your site. You want them to read enough content on your landing page. So you really have one opportunity there to really articulate your value within that one page. And, the question then becomes, well, what can I offer both there? Again, it's something you should test. If you're going to have 2 forms on a page, that could be pretty confusing, right? If you could have one form and give them the option, hey, do you want a trial or do you want a demo? Yeah, test it out and see which one they like.
Why do you think that when just having demo, the conversion suffers? It's much lower versus when we introduce trial. What do you think goes through our prospects' minds that all of a sudden they want this tool more than if they would be just demo there?
Yeah, great question. I think it boils down to the human psyche, right? I think as humans, we live in a very, how can I say, immediate gratification, okay? I want it here, I want it now. If I'm hungry and I walk into that restaurant, I want them, and it's a Tex-Mex restaurant, and I live in Dallas, lots of Tex-Mex. I want that chips and salsa. I want it now, okay? I came to your site. I read up enough to where I've given you my information. I want to be in control. I want to see it, okay? I don't want to have to sit and wait for a call back from a sales rep to give me a sales pitch. I just want to go under the hood, poke around, play around, understand how this thing works to see if it's a fit. And I'm in a time crunch, and I don't have to worry about scheduling anything, et cetera. I know that's me, my own personal experience, but I'm pretty confident I speak for a lot of us, and that, in the online world, we're just moving very, very quickly, very, very quickly. And I want to make a decision very, very, very fast. But I know as somebody who runs a SaaS company, that might not always be the case. Again, if your software is pretty complicated. you might not want to always leave it to just the trial.
Are there any other questions that I didn't ask but I should have?
So one of the things I've observed too is when you do offer a free trial, there's this debate about do I require a credit front before I give them the keys to drive the trial. And there was a company a few years ago, even though the study was about 5 years old, I think it still holds true today, that if you ask for a credit card up front, you are reducing the likelihood of that conversion by 5 times. They gave an example. They ran this across, I think, hundreds of SaaS companies. This is a study by Tatango. You can look it up. But they did a study, and they said that on average, out of 10,000 visitors, only 2% will sign up for the trial if you ask for a credit card. If you don't ask for a credit card, that number jumps from 2% to 10%. So 5 times the conversion rate. So that's just something to really be mindful of during a trial, is really think hard if you want to ask for that credit card up front. And again, that's something you can test, but if time is of the essence and you don't want to mess with the test, I would err on the side of caution and not require a credit card right up front. Now, if it's one of those things where there's you absolutely need a credit card, then what I would do is I would be upfront and let them know that the credit card will not be charged immediately, that it'll only be charged at the conclusion of the free trial, right? So if it's a 7-day trial, then the credit card will be charged on day 8, not on day 1. So again, truth in advertising, just be very, very upfront on when the credit card is going to be charged. But if you don't have to require a credit card up front, I would err on the side of caution and not do that in the interest of stronger conversion.
Any last parting words?
Yeah, for all the SaaS startups listening to today's podcast, keep your head up. I know your competition is a click away, so I strongly encourage you to continue to listen to podcasts like these, educate yourself as much as possible, because we're living in very fast-paced times, and so just continue to really immerse yourself in some of this knowledge. And so thank you, Natalie, for having me on the show and sharing some of the SaaS knowledge, and appreciate everything that you're doing.
Tell us where founders can learn more about what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you visit Bayleaf Digital, B-A-Y, leafdigital.com, that is our website. So if you are a SaaS startup and are looking to get additional SaaS marketing expertise, or at least a SaaS marketing roadmap, would love to have a conversation. That's bayleafdigital.com.
Thanks a lot, Tory. It was a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And that's it for this episode. For those tech founders who have a remote team, I have a question. Do you find yourself that it's much faster for you to do things by yourself than waste all of that mental energy delegating tasks to someone? And so you either don't hire anyone, or if you already have a remote team, you're guilty of doing those tasks by yourself, because there's just so much energy goes into delegating the tasks and then just managing people. Are you able to take a few days off and not be worried that your servers will go down or your support is going to blow up? What if you could work on more strategic, important things and let your team fix the bugs? If you only started building your team in the last couple of years, I guarantee that you are making lots of mistakes that hinder your growth without even realizing that. Oftentimes, you, the founder, may end up being the bottleneck to your team's success. That is definitely hard to swallow, but it's true. But also look on the bright side, this is also the easiest problem for you to fix, because you are in control of how to fix it. I'll be launching soon a program that will help tech founders improve your team performance, and as a result, remove the roadblocks to scaling your SaaS just by improving your operations and team dynamic. This is really the shortcut. To be notified when it's live, go to my website, natalieluniva.com/team. natalieluniva.com/team.